Hello students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. See, we have a set of very important news articles from from today's The Hindu newspaper, right? So look at these articles. The first important article is on the code of social security for platform-based gig workers. See, it is said that the gig workers are the future of India's workforce. So in this context, it is very important to understand who are gig workers and what are the social security benefits being provided by the government under the code on social security. We will discuss this article in a detailed way. Okay, for GS paper 3 perspective, this article is very important. And the next important article is understanding the temperature anomalies. See, recently there has been an increasing temperatures because of global warming and climate change also, and that has been leading to change in temperatures across the globe, and that also leads to increased intensity of El Nino events like El Nino and La Nina, and that in a way bring droughts and floods to different parts of the world. So in this context, we will also understand what are these temperature anomalies and how they further influence the temperature distribution across the globe. Okay, so the next important article is genome sequencing and Genome India project. See, this article is very important for both prelims and mains exam perspective. Earlier also we have discussed the genome sequencing and the Genome India project. So in this article also we will try and understand what is genome sequencing and Genome India project, what are the possible benefits of the Genome India project, and how the genome sequencing helped during the COVID-19 pandemic to decipher the codes of various viruses. And the next very important article is the evacuation. Sudan is in the crisis, so therefore the government of India launched Operation Kaveri. Okay, Operation Kaveri to evacuate all the Indian citizens safely. So in this context, we will also understand what is this operation and the background of the actual crisis. And we also have some prelims relevant articles. One is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As part of this article, we will understand what is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, when it was founded, what are the objectives of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the member countries which are part of the SCO. And the next article is the oil prices, El Nino, are key risks to inflation and growth outlook. Right. So earlier it was predicted that India will grow around 6.5. India's GDP growth will be around 6.5 percentage, but now it is expected that there will be a downside to this prediction because of increasing oil prices and El Nino predictions. So therefore in this context we will try and understand all these articles, and they are very important for both prelims and mains exams perspectives. Right, so the first and foremost and very important news article is about the gig workers. Okay, so this is all about the gig workers. First, understand who are the gig workers. Gig workers are an individual employed transactionally on a time or task based manner. So what happens generally, they do not have a fixed employment. Okay, they do not have a fixed employment. However, per work basis they are generally paid. We generally see gig workers like Zomato and Swiggy. So they generally work as gig workers. So along with the these workers who are working in food delivery business, there are also people who generally work for uh, a particular work is being assigned digitally to those people, and they are also come under the categorized as gig workers or the platform workers. Okay, so gig worker is generally an individual employed transactionally on a time or a task based manner. For example, there is a person and a private company given him a task. Right, there's no relation between him and this private company. However, if this person completes the task, and the private company will pay him some money. Okay, so this is categorized as gig worker, and he will not entitled to receive the monthly payments. Right, so not entitled to receive salaries, benefits, pension benefits, etc. The company just give him a task and he completes the task, and the company will pay him some money. Okay, this is actually the the basic of any gig work. So it is transactionally on a time or a task based manner, having a flexibility to choose their work hours. So in this way, so he can choose his work hours when he wanted to work. For example, a Zomato or a Swiggy worker, they can work at night. So this is how the gig working or the platform working usually works. Okay, so it is said, it is expected that there are around 15 million freelancer workers across various sectors. Okay, there are around 15 million freelancer workers across the uh, different sectors within India, and 90 million jobs could potentially be added by the gig economy in the near future. Okay, so around 90 million jobs will be added by the gig economy alone for different for our youth. Please remember, earlier also we have discussed that India have the 68% of its total population in the working age 15 to 64 years. So therefore the gig economy will create an additional employment of 19 million in the coming years in various sectors. Please also remember, India is set to overtake China in population, and around 12 million workforce entering into the economy every year. So therefore, it is imperative on the part of India to provide a large scale employment both in public sector and the private sector, mostly private sector, and gig economy, and providing social security and safety nets to gig workers is an imperative on the part of the government to make it more sustainable and bring it under the regulatory framework. Okay, so let's try and understand in which sectors these gig workers are actually concentrated on. You can see here higher skill and freelancing. 42 percentage of gig workers are in IT, design, and management. Okay, so the next highest share is in personal service. Personal service include care, wellness, and teaching. You can see most of the gig workers are also in teaching. Okay, so the private institutions hire candidates on per task basis, per hour basis, and they also have the flexibility of working. And the 19 percentage of total workers are engaged in low skill gig work. Low skill gig work include cleaning, micro tasks, deliveries, and ride sharing. So ride sharing, you can see deliveries Zomato, Ola, Zomato and Swiggy, and ride sharing is Ola, Uber, okay, Rapido, etc. So they are also categorized as the gig workers, and others 10% of the other people are engaged in other works. Okay, so what are the who are the key players in the gig economy? There are few key players in the gig economy. They include Uber and Ola. Okay, Uber and Ola employs a majority of the gig workers because they offer the transport services, and apart from that the delivery services also, that is Swiggy, Zomato, delivery, etc. And urban company House Joy. So these are some of the companies. They hire skilled, semi skilled, or unskilled people as a gig workers. Okay, this is all about the gig workers and the workforce, and also try and understand the gig and new age economy. In this we have set of benefits and downsides of the gig economy. See, before actually discussing the actual article, it is important to understand what is a gig economy and what are the areas constitute the gig economy, what are the benefits of gig economy and downsides of the gig economy, so that while we are discussing the article it will be easier for you to comprehend the entire article. Okay, so with the gig economy there are set of benefits. The benefits include creation of jobs on mass scale, right? So there will be a mass scale jobs creation, and freedom and flexibility to work. So a gig worker can work at any time, either at night shift or a day shift, or based on the flexibility he can work at any time. So few individuals also do a part-time work. Okay, so part-time work also comes under the gig workforce, so that he can earn some money, so he join in a part-time work. So freedom and flexibility to work, easy access to services. If for example delivery services, transportation services, for consumers also there is an easy access to services because of the gig workforce. Price advantage for consumers. If there is a gig workforce and companies become more and more competitive, and that provides a price advantage for the consumers. However, along with the benefits, there are some downsides also for the gig economy. The downsides include the inconsistency in services. There's an inconsistency in services. Why inconsistency? Because they are not full-time workers. Okay, they are not full-time workers, but they are part-time workers, and they work on per task per hour basis. Because of that, there is an inconsistency in services. So along with that, partners arm twisted by service providers. The partners who are partners, they are generally arm twisted by the service providers. And thirdly, it is difficult to trust a service provider without the recommendation from someone you trust. Okay, so there is a lack of trust deficit on the part of the gig economy. Okay, so these are some of the downsides of a gig economy. So what are the challenges on the part of the government in regulating the gig economy? So the challenges include, it is highly unregulated. As of now, the gig economy is highly unregulated since it includes a wide variety of sectors. So it is highly unregulated, and bringing an overarching legislation is also little complex and complicated. So apart from that, lack of policies on job structure, what will be the tax and the privacy. There's a lack of a comprehensive policy and a lack of a comprehensive legislation which provides safety and security for the gig workers, along with job structure and tax privacy. And there has been an exponential growth of gig economy in the recent past. Okay, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic, what happened? There was a lockdowns. Due to lockdowns, people are dependent on gig workforce. The companies, majority of the companies, corporates and food delivery businesses, everyone depended on the gig economy. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an exponential growth of the gig economy. However, just understand, earlier also we have discussed, now please understand, there are few key players in the gig economy. They are Uber, Ola, Zomato, Foodpanda, Swiggy, Airbnb, Upwork. So all these companies, all these players provide or offer gig services, or they employ gig workers. Okay, so these are all, or the benefits of, or these are all the details of the gig economy and the gig workforce. So please go through these benefits, downsides and the challenges on the part of the government. So now let's discuss this article in a detailed way. What this article has been saying, that recently, please remember, recently the Rajasthan government has brought rules, okay, has brought a bill in the state legislative assembly. So what is this bill? The bill is Rajasthan platform based gig workers registration and welfare bill. Okay, Rajasthan platform based gig workers registration and welfare bill. So what is the objective of the bill? The objective of the bill is, it provided mad stringent provisions against errant aggregators. For example, those people who are employing the gig workers are errant, they're not paying salaries on time, and they are exploiting the gig workers with unfair working conditions or excess working hours. So this will provide for a stringent provisions against the errant aggregators, as well as various welfare policies for the gig workers. This, in a way, in the Rajasthan, in the state of Rajasthan, there has been an increase in the gig workforce. So therefore, the government brought a bill in the assembly, and the bill mandated various welfare policies for the gig workers. Because if you see, the gig workers generally don't have the social security and the safety nets. Okay, they don't have social security and safety nets. Because of this reason, the government brought this bill, and this will provide for a stringent provisions against errant aggregators, and will also provide various welfare policies for existing gig workers within the state of Rajasthan. Okay, so understand, the government brought four new codes. Okay, the government brought four new codes. So one of the code is a code on social security. So what is the actual objective of this code? This code will provide social security, safety nets, pensions and provident fund, access to employees. Okay, so the new code on social security. However, this new code allows a platform worker to be defined by their vulnerability. Okay, so this new code on social security allowed that a platform worker to be defined by their vulnerabilities, whatever vulnerabilities these platform workers have. For example, one such vulnerability is they are not given enough social safety nets. Okay, so this is one such vulnerability, and based on this vulnerability, this code on social security will define who is a platform worker. For example, in recent past, uh, if you clearly understand, the Swiggy workers have played a very crucial role in the during the pandemic. Not just Swiggy, Zomato, the food delivery platform workers have become more essential during the COVID-19 pandemic times because of the lockdowns. People were not allowed to go outside. So even then they become more essential. In recent past, there has been a you know a slide or a downside uh, movement in their overall salaries, right? So there has been a dip in the pay and no rewards for being the essential workers. Even though they become an essential workers after COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a dip in their salaries and no rewards are being given. Okay, so since they are gig workers and the platform workers, there has been they are also a contract based workers. No rewards are being given, and there has been a dip in their salaries. Okay, so this exposed the vulnerabilities of the gig workers because the company has not been offering the salaries based on their work. Okay, during the last 6 months, many platform workers have unionized. So right, they formed several unions. Platform workers earlier, they don't have unions, but now they are unionized. Several platform workers are unionized under All India Gig Workers Union. Okay, so under this All India Gig Workers Union, several uh, gig workers and the platform workers were unionized, and now they are even protesting every day because of the dip in salaries by the Swiggy, because now Swiggy has reduced they pay from 35 to 10 per delivery order. So they have formed a union, All India Gig Workers Union, and Swiggy dipped their salaries. Because of this dip, they are just receiving 10 rupees per delivery order. So they are started protesting. This shows that they have a lack of safety nets, lack of security on the part of when they receive salary or rewards from such a food delivery company. So it is truly remarkable to see the food delivery identity is being developed through a collective action. So earlier we have discussed that All India Gig Workers Union has formed and they are also protesting. And now the gig workers are collectively coming forward to air their grievances. What are the problems? Okay, this is called as the collective action, just like Uber and Ola taxi drivers. They earlier unionized. Now the food delivery uh, agents are also unionized. They're coming up with the collective action. And the stable terms of earning for any employee, either gig worker or the platform worker or the normal employee, a stable terms of earning are very important, right? So now they are demanding that the delivery persons and drivers should be given a stable terms of income, and they are protesting for the same as well. However, there were three new labor codes. Earlier, we have discussed new labor codes were brought by the government, and one such labor code was the labor code on social security. Okay, so three new labor codes passed by the parliament recently. So these labor codes were already passed by the parliament recently, and these labor codes acknowledge platform and gig workers as new occupational categories. So therefore, these new codes recognized the platform and the gig workers as a new category of employees. So please remember here we have proposed labor codes, three codes. One code is a labor code on wages, and the second code is a labor code on industrial relations, and third one is labor code on social security and welfare, and fourth one is labor code on occupational safety and health working conditions. So this article says that a new labor code passed by the parliament gig workers also recognized gig workers as a new occupational category. Okay, so when these labor codes recognize a particular individual as a gig worker and him as a new occupational category, the possible benefits will be also extended to the particular individual. Okay, so they this recognized as a platform workers as a new occupational category, right? So this is in a bid to keep India's young workforce secure, because we have already discussed every year at least 12 million people are entering into the workforce in India. So therefore there has been a highest share of employment in the gig workforce, and categorization of gig working as a new occupational category is to provide India's young workforce a secure the young workforce and embrace new kinds of work like delivery, digital economy. Okay. However, what a platform worker or the gig worker is allowed to claim as a right, responsibilities, and working conditions. So there are platform workers, gig workers, and what they can claim as a rights, responsibilities, and working conditions, and that can legally upheld is the key question of these codes. So whether these codes have the issues like what gig workers can claim as a rights, responsibilities, and working conditions, whether these codes integrate these things in the newly issued codes or not. However, in the case of factory workers, they have been an important industrial element in India and around the world. The industrial workers. In fact, industrial workers have the right to claim their rights, their responsibilities, and also the working conditions. Okay, so the factory workers have these rights, the rights, responsibilities, and working conditions. Then, what about the gig workers? The codes extended the same rights and responsibilities and working conditions to gig workers or not is the bigger question. The specific issues of working in factories, a duration of time needed on a factory floor, and associated issues are recognized as parameters of defining ideal worker. Okay, so industry in the case of industrial workers, these factors have played a crucial role in defining an ideal worker under most of the labor laws, and this has not shifted much in the recent past. Okay, so these are the few factors which used to identify the industrial worker, or they define the industrial worker. Now, defining an employee especially the gig worker or the platform worker. Now, along with those four codes, one such code is Code on Wages 2019. Okay, this is also passed by the Parliament. So, what the Code on Wages says that it tries to expand the idea of using wages as a primary definition of who is an employee is. Okay, so it tries to expand this idea, the definition of employee. Okay, this idea using wages as a primary definition. So Code on Wages 2019 uses the wages as a primary definition to decide who is an employee, and also the wage relationship. And the wage relationship, because wage relationship is a very important relationship in the world of work. Okay, because the kind of a wage an employee is getting actually decides the uh, relationship, and especially in the context of large informal economy. India have a large informal economy. Around 85% of the total economy is informal economy. So in this context, wages will decide who is an employee, or that defines the employee. Okay, however, the platform delivery people includes Zomato, Swiggy, delivery, etc. So the platform delivery people can claim benefits, not labor rights. So as of now, the platform delivery workers or the gig workers have no labor rights. Okay, but they can claim the benefits, and that includes benefits from the respective state programs also. They cannot claim the labor rights like the industrial workers, but now they just can claim the and benefits of the respective state governments. Okay. However, this does not allow them to go to courts. They cannot go to courts because since the companies are not giving them the respective rights, they are not allowed to go to courts. Even though in order to claim benefits also, they cannot allowed to go to courts, and they cannot demand better and stable pay or regulate the algorithms that assign the tasks. So all these benefits or all these rights are not actually extended to the gig workers. And this also means that the government or the courts cannot pull a private platform. The platforms like Ola, Uber. So these platforms cannot be pulled to the courts by either government or the platform workers because of they are paying low pay and have a long hours of working. So government or the gig worker cannot pull them to the courts. These are some of the loopholes which are already in existence in India's the gig working scenario. So therefore the main role of the laws for a platform worker is to make available benefits and safety nets. So whatever laws the government bring, the main objective of such laws is to make available the benefits and the safety nets from the government and these platform companies. Not just from the government, but from the platforms, these companies also. Even though platforms are part of the idea of how work will evolve in the near future, of course this is true when platforms employ a few individuals, and the platforms over a period of time they will decide how the future of the work will be. So therefore the platforms are part of idea of how work will evolve in this future. However, the current laws do not see them as a future of industrial workers. Okay. So the future, the law as of now, the law do not see the gig workers as a future of industrial workers. There are no guarantees also for the gig workers. What does it mean that when gig workers have no guarantees? In fact, the code on social security which was passed in the year 2020, so it says that the platform workers now eligible for benefits like maternity benefits, disability cover, old age protection, provident fund, employment injury benefits, and so on. Okay, so please make note of this. Code on social security 2020 says that the platform workers will now eligible for all the benefits, uh, right from maternity benefits, life and disability cover, old age protection, provident fund, employment injury benefits, and so on and so forth. However, the eligibility for these schemes does not mean that the benefits are guaranteed. So there is no guarantee of these benefits. There is no guarantee of these benefits which we already discussed. However, this is just an eligibility criteria. It is on the part of the companies. Company can decide whether the benefits should be extended to these platform workers or not. Okay, the eligibility does not mean the benefits are guaranteed. None of these are secure benefits, which means that from time to time the central government can formulate welfare schemes that cover aspects of personal and work security, but they are not guaranteed. Even though the government can frame time to time rules regarding such social safety nets and the social benefits. However, they are not yet guaranteed by the government. Guaranteed means it is mandatory on the part of the private company who employs a gig worker to avoid provide above mentioned benefits to the gig workers. Okay, it is just it is not yet mandated, it is not guaranteed, it just provide for such benefits, eligibility for such benefits. Okay. However, in order to actualize these benefits will depend on the political will at the central and state government. Actualizing these benefits means the governments deciding or the providing guarantees for the gig workers will depend on the larger political will, not just the center government but also the state governments. Okay, how unions elicit political support. How unions provide the political support and the larger political will depend on the overall guarantees provided. However, the language which is in the code is open to imply anything, right? So the whatever language which is in the code of social security imply that the platform companies can be called upon to contribute their either solely or with the government. Okay. So earlier we have discussed that they are eligible for maternity benefits. Okay, they are maternity benefits, life and disability cover. Okay, however, the language which is in the code actually says that, or actually sorry, implying that the government can call a private company which has been uh, uh, which has employed the gig workers to contribute, okay, to contribute to extend these benefits to gig workers. But this does not force the companies to contribute towards the benefits or be responsible for workforce issues. Okay, so there is a very minimal responsibility. So there is very minimal responsibility on the part of the private company or the company which employs the gig workers. This is not mandatory and the government can also not force. So in this scenario, what happens, if there is no political will on the part of the government, then the gig workers will not have enough social security and social safety nets, and they will not have a stable income also. Okay, so in this context, platform worker identity has the potential to grow in power. Okay. The identity of the platform worker has the potential to grow in a near future, and the scope of the platform workers, but it will be mediated by politicians, election years, and rates of underemployment and large investment and heavy technology companies, which are notorious not to comply with the local laws. Okay, so however, it largely dependent the future of the political worker, whether the benefits will be extended to such workers or not. It largely dependent on the political will, and also several companies which are not they are notorious for not complying with the local laws. Okay, so if they don't comply with the local laws, they generally uh, do not extend the social security benefits to the gig workers. However, there are no guarantees for better or more stable days for platform workers. Okay, as of now, there is no guarantee for better and more stable days in the coming future for platform workers, even though they are the future of the work. So, platform workers will be the future of work, especially in India. Okay, but it says that there is no guarantee for better and more stable days for platform workers. So in this context, in the entire article, you have to understand who are the gig workers and what is the composition of gig workers in various sectors. Okay, and what are the main concerns of the gig workers, how the government has not yet provided a stringent provisions on the social security front and safety nets and stable incomes for the gig security, how important it is to provide a safety nets for gig workers because they are the future of the work in India. Okay, so this is all about the gig workers. Now, so let's discuss the next very important news article. Right. So this article is especially regarding the temperature anomalies. Okay, so you can see here in these images, they are clearly represented the anomalies in the temperature distribution across the globe. So in this article, it is discussed that the events like El Nino and the La Nina have been significantly impacting the global temperature distribution. Okay, the global temperature distribution is significantly impacted by these weather events. So along with an increasing temperatures across the globe because of global warming and the emissions, and how it has been changing the weather phenomena in different parts of the world. And it also says that the weather or the climate is local. So therefore, individual at the local level should understand the consequences of such weather phenomena, so that when the actions are taken at the local level, they represent at the global level. The actions at the local level collectively represent the global level, and that will help control the global warming and anomalies in temperatures. Okay, so what happens when there are an anomalies in temperature? For example, because of anomalies, there will be a frequent El Nino like events. Frequent El Nino like events bring drought like conditions across the globe, and that lead to water crisis and poor agricultural productivity, increasing prices, inflation, and low economic growth rates, and even climate refugee problem. Okay, climate refugee problem. So all these problems, and in fact along with that, there has been an increasingly intensifying cyclones both in Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. So increasing intensity of these cyclones bring more destruction, that lead to loss of lives and infrastructure losses. Okay, loss of lives and infrastructure losses. So therefore, in this context, it is important to understand what are these temperature anomalies, and how is temperature distributed from one region to the other region. And also in this context, we will also discuss what is El Nino and La Nina. Okay, right. So first understand what is El Nino and La Nina. In a normal year, what generally happens is, a normal year means Indian monsoon is Indian monsoon is a normal monsoon. Okay, so India receives on an average above average rainfall in a normal year. So what happens is, in a normal year, generally the South American west coast of the South American have the colder waters, and the Western Pacific Oceans have the warmer waters in the normal year, right? So since the Western Pacific Ocean have a warmer waters, that further intensify Indian monsoon. Okay, that further intensify Indian monsoon and high rainfall. Okay, high rainfall, and high rainfall not just within the Indian subcontinent, but Australia will also receive high rainfall, and Indonesia will also receive high rainfall. And in the normal year, due to presence of cold water, there will be an upwelling. Okay, there will be an upwelling, bottom upwelling. So with this upwelling, there is a huge fish catch, a huge fish catch. So therefore, economically also, a normal year benefits the people in both South America and North America. Okay, but in the El Nino year, what happens is that earlier we have discussed this. This is the region where the cold water prevail, but this cold water is replaced with the warm water. Okay, the cold water is replaced with the warm water. When warm water replaces the cold water, that further weakens the Indian monsoon. Okay, that further weakens Indian monsoon, because it have a cold water and it have a warm water. Now winds move from the high pressure region to the low pressure region, right? Generally wind move from high pressure region to low pressure region, so therefore it further weakens Indian monsoon. And when it weakens Indian monsoon, India will experience drought, right? Below average rainfall. Not just India, Australia will experience drought, and Indonesia will also experience drought. However, these countries, the Northern America and the Southern America, will face heavy rainfall. Okay, so these are the impacts of El Nino, and the temperature anomalies are also responsible for the increasing events like El Nino and La Nina. First, understand the differences between El Nino and the La Nina. So we have discussed normal year and El Nino year, but what happens during La Nina year? So La Nina years, what happens is it is reversed to El Nino. Okay, La Nina is different to El Nino. So in this La Nina year, there has been a huge warm water. Here it is warm water, and this condition, the normal condition, further intensifies. Okay, normal condition further intensify, and there's a prevalence of cold water and the warm water prevalence. So further intensify the normal year, and that led to flood like situation, heavy rainfall in the entire Indian subcontinent, Australia and Indonesia. First, understand the difference between El Nino and La Nina. The trade winds weaken in the Western Pacific. Okay, so this is the Western Pacific region, and during El Nino period, the trade winds generally weaken. Okay, when trade winds weaken, the winds generally move from the west to east. and trade winds cause warmer waters to move east. Okay, you can see here the direction of the movement of water, and the sea surface temperatures increased across the eastern Pacific. This is eastern Pacific, and the sea surface temperatures increased across the eastern Pacific by 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. El Nino events occur every 3 to 7 years. Okay, every 3 to 7 years. But because of increasing global warming and the temperature anomalies, the intensity of the El Nino events has been further increased. Right. So El Nino leads to reduced upwelling of deep nutrient-rich waters and leads to reduction in fish population along the South American coast. Fish population is very important for the livelihood of the people in the South American region. So therefore, due to El Nino condition, there is a less or reduced upwelling of the water. Okay, so that further reduce the nutrient rich water coming out and the fish catch also. So also understand the La Nina conditions. In La Nina, trade winds become stronger than normal. Okay, the trade winds become stronger. So the movement of trade winds you can see here, so they become stronger than the normal, and trade winds cause warmer waters to the west. So warmer waters move west, and the sea surface temperatures of the western Pacific Ocean or the eastern Pacific Ocean reduces by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. La Nina events occur half the amount of time El Nino events do. Okay, for example, El Nino events occur 10 times. For example, 10 times, La Nina occurs just 5 times. So therefore, El Nino events are more frequent. In UPSC, you may also get the question that which event is more frequent. El Nino events occur more frequently, and it also leads to enhanced upwelling of nutrient-rich waters, increasing fish populations along the South American coast. Okay, so this is all about the El Nino and La Nina. First, try and understand the this phenomena of increased temperature anomalies. However, global warming, we generally uh, see global warming as a major problem which has been impacting the weather phenomena across the world. So global warming does not mean that each month or each year will be warmer than the previous month. So there has been a misconception understanding there's a mistake in understanding the global warming. Global warming is does not mean that each month or each year will be warmer than the previous month or the previous year. Actually, the global distribution of temperature anomalies is due to land, ocean, atmosphere processes. Right. So, in the entire globe, there's a land and water and the atmosphere. Okay. So the interactions between all these three uh, aspects decide the global temperature anomalies, and that ultimately determine weather and climate of the particular region and the entire globe. Okay. However, if you understand, recently in March 2023, it is declared that it is the second warmest March on record. Okay, so this is actually the second warmest March on record. A huge temperatures, heavy temperatures in the March 2023. So this actually means that uh, in terms of the impact on the impact on the planet, local weather and the human psyche. So what does it effectively mean on the planet, weather, local weather and the human psyche? We need to understand going forward. Okay, so a national oceanic and atmospheric administration. So this is US based weather forecasting agency. Okay, so the national oceanic and atmospheric administration serves as an excellent source to contextualize individuals' month ranking by temperature anomalies, because that provides a data over a period of time. So that will be helpful as an excellent source to contextualize the individual month's ranking. Okay. So why was March 2023 is the second warmest? Why actually what is the main reason for March 2023 to be the second warmest? The reason is the second warmest, because the March 2023 is indeed the second warmest in the instrumental record, because the first warmest month, this is the second warmest. Okay, the first warmest month of March was in 2016. The reason for the warmest month in the March is because of El Nino, right? So the main reason for this is El Nino. and because of El Nino there has been a huge increase in temperature. So the rapid rise in temperatures, especially this also called as mini global warming. Okay, so this is further called as mini global warming. However, the January to March average temperature anomaly ranks 2023 as the fourth warmest of such period on record. So if you compare the average temperatures of January and March with that of previous temperatures, then it says that 2023 as the fourth warmest of such period on record. Okay, so in the entire history of the planet, so this is the fourth warmest of such period on record. See, especially after the industrial revolution, the global temperatures have been rising at a rapid pace. Okay, the global temperatures have been rising at a rapid pace, and that led to the global warming. Okay, so global warming in turn gives rise to the climate change and related events across the planet, right? So one such the event, the El Nino, is because of increasing global warming or increasing temperatures. Okay, a year is El Nino year if warmer water spreads a band from west to east over an equatorial Pacific Ocean, right? So we have discussed what is El Nino and what is La Nina also in our previous slide, right? So in El Nino year, what happens that the warmer water spreads in a band from west to east. Okay, so in a band, the warmer water spreads from Western Pacific to Eastern Pacific Ocean. So that will in turn intensify the temperatures. Okay, so in a La Nina year, cooler water spreads from this is in a La Nina year, this complete the warmer water, a band of warmer water will move from east to west. Okay, so in the same region, so both phenomena have a distinct and significant effects on the global climate. So they create temperature anomalies and they bring heavy rainfalls, and they also responsible for droughts and floods. Okay, so they have a significant effect on overall global climate. Okay, so global mean temperatures, they themselves represent an increasing amount of if you carefully observe the global mean temperatures, the temperatures across the globe, so they uh, increasingly point out or represent that there has been an additional energy we are trapping on the earth system. So whatever the solar radiation or the solar energy is being received by the earth along with the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, that led to the increased trapping of earth system. Okay, increased trapping of heat within the earth system and preventing its escape to the space. When heat don't escape to the space, and that further creates a misbalance in the overall heat budget of the earth. So this further increasing the atmospheric concentration of such heat or the greenhouse gases and heat trapping, and leads to greenhouse gases. So why it is important, why this is we have already discussed that 2023 March is the warmest period, right? It is the warmest period, second warmest after 2016. So why it is important to understand, because the increasing or the monstrous warming to the west, to the north of India begins tell the story. This weather anomalies, whatever weather anomalies we are experiencing, they are leading to cooler March in Mumbai, excess pre-monsoon rains over northwest India, and scorching heat waves in Kerala and Odisha. So this shows that there has been a change in climate in these regions over a period of time because of temperature anomalies. Okay, so traditionally these regions don't experience such kind of a climate, but because of temperature anomalies, the weather patterns have been changing. In fact, the Arabian Sea has also warmed more than expected this March. Okay. So, Arabian Sea has also experienced the intensifying heat. Okay, it has become more warmer in this March, and it will further intensify or the further continue, and it can favor strong monsoon and may also enhance the cyclogenesis. So what is the cyclogenesis? Cyclogenesis is increasing origin of cyclones over the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea as well. So not just the birth or the origin of cyclones because of the warmer temperatures further intensify the cyclones. Okay, so further intensifies cyclones, and they bring a huge trail of destruction along with them over the eastern and the western coasts of India. Okay, over the eastern and western coasts of India. Now, global distribution of temperature anomalies is due to land, ocean, atmospheric processes, and they dynamically determine weather and climate. So we are already discussed that the weather anomalies are because of the interactions between the land, ocean, and the atmosphere, and they distribute or they decide the weather and climate in different parts of the planet. So, global warming does not mean that each month or each year warmer than the previous month or the previous year. It effectively means that uh, the averaging the weather over a decade. Okay, so for example, in India, so average temperatures over a decade, and decade to decade warming clearly shows that humans are now ensuring each decade is warmer than the previous decade. Okay, it shows that if you carefully observe average temperatures or the average weather in a particular region, it shows that the humans are ensuring that previous year each decade is warmer than the previous decade. However, 2023 is expected to be an El Nino year. So what will be the consequences of El Nino year? With the El Nino year, there will be drought like conditions across India. Okay, so they will be below average rainfall also. So this tend to produce a weaker monsoon for India. Okay, so weaker monsoon for India means the sowing will impact it, the agriculture productivity will impact, the investment will impact, and that further increases inflation. Okay, so that further increases inflation. Now understand, all global warming is local. No doubt the global warming is local, and nobody lives in the global mean temperatures. No particular individual lives in all the global mean temperatures. Okay. So the global warming is local. So therefore, it is an imperative on the people to act at the local level, right? So when people act at the local level collectively, then that will bring a significant change in the overall climate change countering efforts at the global level also, right? So it says that it is highly likely that they can be engaged in the climate action. Okay, climate action at the local level symbolizes the climate action at the global level. So this is what this article is all about. Please remember El Nino and La Nina and their impact on the Indian monsoon. It is very important for exam. Okay, the next very important news article is Genome Sequencing and Genome India project. Okay, the government of India started the Genome India project, and 10,000 individuals, the 10,000 individuals will be their genome will be sequenced. Okay, the genome will be sequenced, and sequencing the genome will help identify the mutations, new genetic disorders, thereby the drugs or the vaccines could be manufactured in a more effective and a more potent manner. Okay, so now first understand what is the Genome India project and what is the actual objective of the Genome India project. Okay, first understand the why is a Genome India project is important. Why is Genome India project important, and what is actual significance of the genome sequencing? So first understand the consequence of the context of the genome sequencing. Department of Biotechnology recently said that the exercise to sequence 10,000 Indian human genomes. Okay, so overall the 10,000 Indian genomes will be sequenced, okay, and create a database under the center backed Genome India project. So this is a government or the central government backed Genome India project, and in this project they sequence 10,000 Indian human genomes. Okay, there are different population categories within India, and within these population categories, 10,000 Indian human genomes will be sequenced, and a comprehensive data will be created. Okay, so about 7,000 genomes sequencing has have already completed or already sequenced, and 3,000 are available for public access to researchers. Okay, so around 7,000 already completed, 3,000 are available to public access for research. So they conduct various research on these aspects. So what is a genome sequencing? First, understand what is a genome sequencing. So genome sequencing is the entire set of deoxyribose nucleic acid. Okay, so the full form of DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid. So this is the genome is the entire set of DNA. So entire set of DNA is called as genome. Okay, so residing in a nucleus of every cell. For example, this is a cell, a human cell, and human cell have a nucleus, and within nucleus there is a DNA. Okay, so this is a genomic material, right? So within the nucleus of every human cell there is a genome. Okay, and it carries some genetic information from one generation to other generation. Okay, so for example, a few diseases, they are genetically inherited diseases, they are also carried from one generation to other generation. So therefore this genome carries the genetic information, and that information is responsible for the development, the functioning of any organism. Okay, development and functioning of any organism. Understand, the DNA consists of double stranded structure. Okay, this is actually the structure of DNA. Okay, so this is how the structure of DNA looks. However, RNA is just a single stranded DNA. Okay, single stranded DNA, but single stranded RNA, and it is a double stranded structure, and it is built over four base pairs. What are the base pairs? Adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. So these are actually the base pairs. Okay, so for example, like you can see the structure of DNA. The base pairs generally look this way. Okay, on the one side, one end there will be adenine, and on the other end the guanine, cytosine, thymine. So like this. Okay, so this is entirely the genomic material. Well, the sequence of base pair is identical in all humans. That's how the sequence will be. The sequence is actually identical in all humans. However, there are some differences in the genome of every human being. So that makes them they unique. Okay, the sequence is same, but there is a difference in the genome of individuals, and that makes the people unique from other. And the process of deciphering the order of base pairs to decode genetic fingerprint of a human is called genome sequencing. So what is the genome sequencing? Genome sequencing is the process of deciphering the order of base pairs, how the order of base pairs is actually is in a genomic material, and decoding the genetic fingerprint of a human is called as genome sequencing. Okay, actually in the year 1919 a group of scientists began to work determining the whole sequence of human genome under the Human Genome Project. Okay, so this is the international level project, but India Genome Project is an Indian specific project. Okay, this is actually the Human Genome Project, and which was started in the year 1919. A group of scientists, so they decided to work determining the whole sequence of human genome. So however, there are several approaches to genome sequencing. There are several approaches to determine the genome sequencing. However, that include a whole genome sequencing. Okay, whole genome sequencing. The process of whole genome sequencing made possible by Human Genome Project. This Human Genome Project is made possible the uh, whole genome sequencing. Now facilitates the reading of a person's individual genome to identify differences from average a human genome. So now the Human Genome Project facilitates the reading of a particular individual's genome to identify difference from average human genome. So how the average human genome is uh, sorry, how average human genome is from the actual one particular individual will be decided by the Human Genome Project. So what are the applications of Human Genome Project? It is very important to know the applications of Human Genome Project. Okay, so what are the actual applications of human genome sequencing? So this sequencing has been used to evaluate rare diseases. There are several rare diseases which are genetic origin, and they are passed on from one generation to the another generation. So therefore, it will help evaluate the rare disorders and preconditions for disorders, and even cancer from the viewpoint of genetics. several cancer, for example the bone marrow cancer, that also has the genetic origin. Okay, so therefore in the perspective of the cancer also, in the viewpoint of the cancer also, the genetic sequencing will help rather than the disease of a certain organs. Nearly 10,000 diseases are genetic origin. 10,000 diseases that include cystic fibrosis, thalassemia are known to be a malfunction of genes. Okay, so these 10,000 diseases are actually caused by the malfunction of genes, right? So if we are able to sequence, if we are able to understand the human genome properly, then the appropriate interventions or the appropriate medicine could also be possible. So therefore understand what did it help during the pandemic. So how the the human genome project helped during the pandemic particularly. Understand in the year January 2020 January, at the start of pandemic, Chinese scientist, his name Yang Zhen Zhang. So this particular scientist sequenced the genome of a novel pathogen causing infection in the Wuhan city. So this scientist already sequenced the novel pathogen in the Wuhan. And after the genome sequencing of this particular pathogen, the virologists began evaluating the sequence to try and understand how to combat this virus. So they already started, once they decipher the genome, once the genomic material of this particular pathogen, they started working on how they tried and understand how to combat this virus and track mutating variants and their intensity and spread. Okay, so to come up with various vaccines. However, India also put a place a sequencing framework. Okay, for example, uh, for the COVID-19 pandemic itself, Indian government has put SARS-CoV-2 genomic consortium. Okay, SARS-CoV-2 genomic consortia. This is so otherwise known as INSA COG. Okay, so this consortia particularly uh, uh, sequences the genomic material of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so this will help in identifying mutations, new variants uh, across a different set of patients. Okay, so that this will provide an additional interventions from the government side. Okay, so you can see here this consortium of labs across the country was tasked with scanning coronavirus samples from the patients and also flagging presence of different variants or the new variants known to have spiked transmission internationally. Now, understand what is the Genome India project. So, we tried and understand genome sequencing and human genome project, but also understand Genome India project. So, India's 1.3 billion strong population consisting of over 4,600 population groups. In India, we have around 4,600 population groups, and many of these groups are endogamous. Endogamous means there is no outside influence on us. So most of these groups are from India only. Okay, they are endogamous. Thus, the Indian population harbors a distinct variations. Okay, so with disease causing mutations, these groups have a distinct variations with the disease causing mutations, and that often amplified within some of these groups. These mutations often been amplified in some of these groups, and that led to several genetic disorders. Okay, that led to several genetic disorders among the people. Okay, now, but despite being a large population with ethnic groups, India lacks a comprehensive catalog of genetic variations. So despite India having 1.3 billion population, India does not have a comprehensive database on the genetic variations among 4,600 population groups. So therefore, the government of India started the Genome India project, and the project will sequence the entire genome of the 4,600 population groups, and it creates a database of Indian genomes, and that will allow researchers to learn about genetic variants unique to India, few genetic variants that are particularly unique to India, and population groups, and that will help customize the drugs. And about 20 institutions are engaged in the Genome India project. So this is all about the Human Genome Project and the Genome India project, and how these projects have a significant applications when it comes to drug making or the drug customization or preventing the genetic diseases among the people. Okay, so The next very important news article is the Sudan crisis. Okay, Sudan crisis. Now in Sudan there are two groups, army and the paramilitary group. So they are fighting for power. There has been a power struggle between these two groups, and that led to the widespread violence within the Sudan. So therefore, Government of India started Operation Kaveri. Okay, the Government of India launched Operation Kaveri to evacuate Indians from the conflict hit state of Sudan with the help of other countries like UAE, France, UK, and Saudi Arabia. Okay, so in this context, we will discuss this article, but first understand the location, the geographical location of Sudan. What are the bordering countries of Sudan? Okay, Sudan have the boundary with the sea, that is Red Sea. Okay, Sudan sharing border with the Red Sea. And if you look at the neighboring countries or countries with which Sudan sharing its border is Eritrea, Egypt, Libya, Chad, Central African Republic, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. Okay, so what is the capital city of Khartoum? The capital, what is the capital city of Sudan? The capital city of Sudan is Khartoum. Okay, so this is the capital city of Khartoum. Now, also understand. First, we'll try and understand the crisis in Sudan. So what is actually the crisis in Sudan? The background of the crisis. The conflict in Sudan has its roots in the overthrowing of a long. In Sudan, there's a long serving president. Okay, the president name is Omar al Bashir. Okay, so he was overthrown in the year 2019 by the military because of widespread protests. Okay, the Omar al Bashir, he was the long serving president. He was overthrown in the year 2019 because of the widespread public protests. And after the overthrow of Omar al Bashir, this led to an agreement between the military and the protesters. Okay. So that led to, in a subsequent period, there was an agreement between the military and the protesters. So under this agreement, there was a power sharing body was created. The name of the power sharing body was Sovereignty Council. Okay, a Sovereignty Council was created after the overthrow of the long-serving Omar al-Bashir. Okay, so that was established. The Sovereignty Council was established, and that led to Sudan to elections at the end of 2023. Okay, so there will be elections in Sudan by the end of 2023 because of the Sovereignty Council. However, the military overthrew the transitional government led by Abdullah Hamid. So after this agreement in the year 2019, uh, a transitional government was formed in Sudan. Okay, so that transitional government was led by Abdullah Hamdok in the year 2021, and Burhan becoming the de facto leader. So Abdullah Hamid was the army chief. Okay, he was the army chief of Sudan, and Burhan is actually the leader of the paramilitary forces, and he became the de facto leader of the country. And Daglo is his second in command. Okay, after the overthrow of transitional government led by Abdullah Hamdok in October 2021, so Burhan, he was actually the commander. He was actually the commander of the armed forces. He was become a leader in 2021, and then Daglo was also made second in command to the Sudan. Okay, so there was a tussle between army and RSF. This tussle for power sharing led to a conflict in Sudan. Okay. So power struggle between two military, SAF and paramilitary generals arose, interrupting a plan to transition to elections. Now, because of this conflict, lead to creates an interruption of power sharing. Okay. Now understand, as India's Operation Kaveri, we have discussed this Operation Kaveri is an evacuation operation of Indian students from Sudan. It was launched to evacuate Indians who are stuck inside war-torn Sudan is underway, and the government is also making the most of 72-hour ceasefire window. So there was a 72-hour ceasefire window, and within 72 hour, all the countries should evacuate their citizens. So there will be no firing on civilians within these 72 hours. Okay, bring about by already bring about by 3,000 civilians from Sudan. However, given the heavy fighting in Khartoum, Khartoum is the capital city of Sudan. So in Khartoum there was a heavy fighting. Earlier also we have discussed the Hakki Pikki tribe. Okay, so the Hakki Pikki tribe. So that tribe originally from Karnataka migrated to Sudan. Okay, that tribe will also be evacuated. And there was a heavy fighting in Khartoum between the forces loyal to the head of ruling council. One is General Abdel Fattah al Burhan, and uh, second is and second ruling council General Abdul Fattah al Burhan, who also heads the Sudanese armed forces, and second deputy General Mohammad Hameti Hamdan Daglo. So now the fighting is between the armed forces of Sudan and the paramilitary forces of Sudan. They are already also called as RSF. Okay. Now most civilians are being brought to road to Port Sudan, and this was actually the perilous journey to be evacuated by sea. However, India has been coordinating its operations in Sudan with other countries like US, UK, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, along with the logistics, uh, timing, and evacuation operations, and even using Saudi and French planes to evacuate Indians from Sudan. Okay, it is clear that military personnel and officials and the diplomats will have a difficult few days, no doubt, because of in order to evacuate Indians from the conflict region. This will be a difficult task for everyone, military personnel, officials, and the diplomats. That even humanitarian workers and ambulances have been attacked because of, in this crisis, even humanitarian effort or the ambulances are also attacked. So therefore, the cumulative experiences of Indian forces evacuating people, Indian citizens from the conflict areas, is definitely provides an advantage for the Indian forces right from the Gulf War in 1991. So during the Gulf War 1991 also, India has undertaken a huge evacuation exercise. Okay, however, the Sudan evacuation brings once more into the focus the particular challenges. Okay, see, this part of the article is very important, and this brings once more into focus the particular challenges that India faces in any conflict. Okay, what are those challenges? With about 14 million non-resident Indians, 14 million non-resident Indians in it, and more than 7 million tourists and travelers each year, there is a practically no conflict today that does not affect Indian citizens. So wherever there is a conflict in the across world, and that definitely impact Indians. So therefore, India should have a separate wing for the evacuation exercise. Okay, India should have the separate wing for the evacuation exercise. In fact, so many work in the most dangerous environments, right from the students in Ukraine, nurses in Iraq, Yemen, or laborers in Libya, Syria, and Lebanon. Okay, so all these people are work or study in different these conflict areas. Okay, however, the responsibility of the government to help those without the means to return the safety is greater. So there is a greater responsibility on the part of the government to bring them back to our country safely, because they are working in a conflict areas, and we also have 14 million non-resident Indians and 7 million travelers across the country. In fact, there is a need to develop a standard operating procedure and even a possibly a special force to deal with such crisis. We need to have a standard operating procedure, and we should have a special force to deal with such crisis. For example, we have NDRF, okay, National Disaster Response Force, and this have a standard operating procedure, and that we have deployed to rescue and relief operations in Turkey. Not just Turkey, in other countries also, anywhere in humanitarian assistance, disaster relief operations. So in the same way, we should also have a special force to deal with such crisis or such evacuation like situation, and we should also have a standard operating procedures, and this is rightly recommended by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs in the year 2022. So therefore, we should have a such standard operating procedure and a special force to deal with such situations. and it should be considered, it must be considered by the government as well to create such a force. Along with that, it is also essential that the such crisis be devoid of any political grandstanding. So please, it says that whenever such a situation arises, whenever there is an evacuation exercise is undertaken, that should be kept aside from the political mileaging. Okay, public spats, finger pointing, etc. Because we need to work in the safety of Indian citizens outside, and it also concerns our national security. Okay, so India is generally admired across the globe for its reputation and ability to harness all its resources in rescuing every single citizen. Okay, so this is evident from India's operation, India's operation during evacuation of citizens or students from Ukraine. Okay, so therefore India is traditionally known for its reputation and ability to harness all its existing resources for rescuing every single citizen in any corner of the world. So every time they are in need. So this reputation must keep or remain intact. So therefore there is a need to create a special forces that can deal with such situations, and there is a need to develop standard operating procedures. We need to develop standard operating procedures. So this is all about this article. So the next very important news article is India to host the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet. Okay, India to host the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet this year. We all know that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, currently India is a chair of Shanghai Cooperation Organization along with the G20 summit. Okay, so very soon Chinese Defense Minister Li Shungfu will visit India for Shanghai Cooperation Organization defense meet along with the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Okay, so both these individuals will visit India as part of the SCO Defense Ministers meeting. So why a meeting is significant? The meeting is significant because this is first high level meet from Chinese side. So this is first level high level military level meet. Okay, high level military side meet or visit from China to India, especially after the Galwan clashes, especially after the Galwan clashes in the year 2020. Okay, because of this reason it is significant. Now what are the key areas they will consider? The key areas include peace, security, counterterrorism, and efforts within the SCO, and an effective multilateralism. Right? So these are the areas they will focus in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Minister meeting. Okay. Now we'll try and understand when it was formed, what are the objectives, and what are the member countries which are part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Right? So what is SCO? SCO is a Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It was founded in the year 2001. However, both India plus Pakistan became a members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the year 2017. Right? So what are the objectives of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? The objectives include they resolve border issues. The border issues between these countries will be resolved peacefully. And secondly, they fight terrorism and bolster regional security. And they have a regional anti-terrorism structure called RATS. Okay, regional anti-terrorism structure to fight terrorism, and they also bolster regional security, and they also counter American influence in the Central Asian region. So these are the member countries of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, right from China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, India, Pakistan. Please remember the all the members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization and G20, because that will help in your exam. Okay, so apart from this, we also have a few aspects why the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is very significant. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is significant because of the following reasons. One is seen as an eastern counter to balance the NATO. See, we already know that NATO has been expanding to Eastern Europe to counter Russia. So therefore, it is increasingly seen as a counterbalance to NATO and enhance the security cooperation among the member countries, especially with the help of RATS structure. And it also helps deal with the terrorism, particularly the Islamic State terrorists, and increase economic cooperation of the region, and that will lead to the integration, the economic integration of the region. And the OBR initiative, China started One Belt and One Road initiative. In fact, India is not part of the OBR, but all the other SCO member countries are part of the OBOR. So the cooperation will also be uh, uh, between these two, between all the countries on OBOR. So India's push for connectivity with Chabaha port. Yes, India developed a Chabaha port in Iran coast. Okay, so this will help India access Afghanistan and the Central Asian region and Eurasia. Okay, and along with that, there is an international north-south transport corridor also, and that links Russia with the India, Iran as a mediate. Okay, so the middle power. Okay, the international north-south transport corridor connecting the um, subcontinent of Central Asian countries. So all the Central Asian countries will be connected with the international north-south transport corridor. So there are some issues also within SCO. The issues include India's objections to China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), because that has been violating India's sovereignty and passing through the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And second issue is traditional hostility between India and Pakistan. Both India and Pakistan are members of SCO, so there is a traditional hostility between these two countries. And the third issue is Russia and China standoff over Ukraine. Okay, so standoff over Ukraine. This is also an issue within the SCO summit. Okay, so these are all about the SCO summit. So let's look at the very important news article. The oil prices and El Nino are key risks to inflation growth outlook. Okay, so what is inflation? What is inflation? Inflation is a general rise in prices. Okay, inflation is general rise in prices. So in this context, general rise in prices. So in this context, oil prices, El Nino, are key risks to inflation. Why El Nino is a key risk to inflation? Earlier we have discussed that what is El Nino. Okay, in the same lecture we have discussed what is El Nino. So El Nino impacts Indian monsoon, negatively impact Indian monsoon. So if it impacts Indian monsoon, there is a drought-like condition or below normal rainfall. Drought-like condition or the below normal rainfall. So if there is a drought-like condition, that will impact the sowing season in India, right? That will impact the sowing season in India, and there will be less productivity, less agriculture production. So if there is less agriculture production, that further increases inflation, that further increases the food inflation in the country. So therefore, the rising food inflation and also increasing oil prices uh, will further increase inflation in the economy, and that further leads to a slide in a downside of 6.5 percentage GDP, which was earlier projected, which if an economy has a higher levels of inflation, that leads to downside in the projected GDP forecast. Okay, so how high oil prices leads to inflation? Because of high oil prices, then the other, because several sectors, other sector, transport sector or any other sector, all these sectors are dependent on oil, and if oil prices increase, then that also leads to increase in the inflation or the overall cost of the product, overall price of the product. Okay, so here it is given that the downside risks dominate the upside risks to outlook growth. So inflation is a major challenge. So the finance ministry flags an increase in oil prices following the surprise production cuts by OPEC plus. So OPEC plus is a grouping. Okay, OPEC plus is a grouping. If they announce production cuts, they will not produce enough oil. Okay, they will not produce enough oil. If they don't produce enough oil, that further squeezes the availability of oil in the international market. That will lead to further increase in oil prices across the globe. Okay, oil prices across the globe. So therefore, that also increases oil prices within the domestic market, and that increases the inflation as well. So the effect of El Nino on inflation is already discussed. So along with that, there is a further financial troubles in advanced nations. We have discussed that what kind of troubles they have. For example, rising inflation, food crisis, energy crisis. So all these factors have been leading to increasing inflation in those economies. So therefore, they are adopting the contractionary monetary policies. Okay, they are adopting the contractionary monetary policies. Okay, so now also understand, we have discussed about the lumpy skin disease. Okay, lumpy skin disease, and lumpy skin disease will further reduce the milk production and the productivity, milk production and the productivity, and this will also have an impact on the inflation by increasing the food inflation, increasing the food inflation. So these are all the impacts of inflation on the economy, and because of these factors, there are chances that inflation in Indian economy will increase, and increase in inflation will pose a risk to 6.5 percentage earlier forecasted GDP growth rate of India. GDP growth rate of India. Okay, so these are all very important relevant articles for today's discussion. Okay, thank you.